rhythm, form, place, palette, function. These are 5 attributes that I think are more interesting to talk about in terms of what a piece has than whether it's like good or bad at doing this or that or trying to apply different rules to it. Everything has a rhythm. You could use the word timing, but time is basically how we perceive rhythm. And what I mean by that is everything is always vibrating, everything is always going up and down like a sine wave, right? And how extreme those waves go up and down, and how long is the time between those waves, that is rhythm. So we're constantly detecting rhythms, and when we notice one, when we start seeing patterns, that is, patterns is another word for rhythms also. But when we are creating art, there are rhythms that we observe in order to make it more palatable for the audience. For instance, the way that I'm timing out my words, the way that I pace every single thing that I say, and the volume at which I say it, which is changing constantly. You know, there's a lot of rhythm going on, a lot of rhythm manipulation going on here. That's something I'm very attuned to. Does this thing have a interesting rhythm? I'm not going to use the word good here because I think that it's very reductive and not very helpful because everyone has their own idea of what is good. But if I just say that it is interesting, you understand that I got something out of it. Not necessarily that I made a value judgment about it, but that I don't regret the experience, you know. And in Japan, this is the way they describe things. Like, if you were to stop someone on the street and ask them their opinion of a movie, they're either going to say omoshiroi, which means it was interesting, or tanoshi, which means it was fun, or, you know, samushi, meaning it was boring. Or sad, I think that means sad. I don't remember how to say boring. Form. This video is in the form of a video, and the audio from the video, we talk about video when we say video, we might mean just the video and not the audio, but we might also mean the entire thing. It's unfortunate that there's not like a better word for separating those two things, but I guess we'll call this it's not a film, it's a project, whatever. This project is in the form of a digital media file, most likely being watched through streaming by you. In the video, you can see my form. You can see this form of this bed frame behind me and some vague forms behind me. But mostly it's the wave forms. It's mostly my voice that is carrying this video. If you clicked away and you can't even see the video component, you're not really missing out on almost anything. This is entirely about my voice, and it's mostly about the content of what I'm saying, but my voice is very important to the delivery of this. This is not an easy watch if my voice doesn't have a good shape, you know, and I've worked a lot on the shape of my voice, and I can make a lot of different shapes with it.
I could be shaping my voice this way, but this isn't as pleasant to listen to for 45 straight minutes.
As a voice that, you know, has a little more body and gravity and fullness to it, comes from all the way using all of the chest and the diaphragm. So that's form. I'm creating a form throughout my body, and I'm shaping the way that the waves are being distributed into this microphone. And I also understand how the microphone interprets me well enough that I can, you know, I can play around with it. Like, I could do something like this.
And I can do something like this.
And, like, you know, I had to put the microphone in those positions to get the effect that I was going for with those voices, you know. But that's me creating form. Now, I've separated form and place, even though they are heavily interrelated. But I think that it's worth acknowledging how the form interplays with the place. So, for instance, the reason that it's important for me to use a microphone like this has less to do with the fact that it's going to capture my voice better per se, like, or make it sound better, as that it's going to sound better through more speakers. That if I was just using the phone camera, it's going to have pretty good audio, especially if I play it out of another phone, because it's well optimized to come out of phone speakers, because the expectation is that you'll record something and then you'll watch it back on your phone. But it's not going to be the best optimized for headphones. It's not going to be the best optimized for, a car speaker. It's going to sound way roomier in those contexts. And when you're in a car, you're not looking for the audio to take you into a different room that feels too different from your car, unless that room is just like something that makes you feel really in tune with your body, so you can pay more attention to the road, which is why, like, dance music and something that's hype or something that just like really fills all the space in the air is great car music, because it just keeps you pumped and focused on what's happening in front of you. It turns the room of the car into a cool room. It doesn't take you and put you somewhere else completely different. And sometimes some people can listen to that kind of stuff while they drive. I get too dissociated. So if I'm getting pulled out of the drive and going on a fantasy adventure, I can't focus on what I'm doing in front of me. Everyone has a different way of associating with that kind of thing. But when I say place, that's also what I can mean, right? Like the Lord of the Rings takes you to a place. It describes a place. It became a sense of place. And when you watch the movies, like, they are in a place. That place is New Zealand, but it's like a heavily modified New Zealand to create a fantasy version of a New Zealand that is close enough to the real thing. You can go there and kind of be like, wow, I'm in the Lord of the Rings, as imagined by the films. I already said that, I am a form. This bed frame is a form. There is forms behind it, but holistically, this place is my front porch. And like, you can barely see it. I could have convinced you I was indoors if not for the sound environment. The fact that you can probably hear birds chirping outside, the occasional bus passing by. There is an open window over there. I'm surrounded by windows, which is why there's so much daylight in this, sort of front foyer room. But if I angled the camera up even a little bit, you'd immediately be able to see through my window to my street and figure out where I live. Maybe this is obvious, but sound reverberates around an environment. And so the shape of the room that you are in is always going to become a part of the way that you record your audio, and also the shape of the space that is being listened to in will inform the way that it sounds. And so if you can create some congruency between those things, it can be helpful. Or even if you create your audio in a way that is transportational. This microphone should make my voice sound good enough that you can listen to this on a car speaker and it won't be distractingly, off-puttingly placey. It'll sound like, even if you can kind of hear the environment I'm in, it's easy to ignore because I sound enhanced. I sound technological. I sound too close to the ear to be natural. It doesn't sound like I'm just in the room with you, where it might sound that way if I was recording through the phone. And even then, the phone is pretty good at like picking out your voice and singling it out. But there are definitely sound environments that are more transportational and ways of recording that are as well. This should put enough focus on my voice to fit most environments where I expect it to be heard. It wouldn't fit on like a club speaker. It would sound fucked, but it should never be played there. This is not a type of content that belongs in that environment. So I just would never expect that to happen. But any speaker I would expect this to be played on, it should sound fine. So that's place. Now let's talk about palette. Palette. This can literally mean color palette if we're talking about illustrative art, but it also is the palette of your types of lines that you use, the palette of what type of sounds do you use if you're making a soundscape, what type of things do you reference if you're writing words, what is your pool of reference. The palette of this video is mostly words. It's a bunch of words that I am arranging in a way that gives them meanings that may or may not make you reconsider the way that you look at those words. This is basically a video about words. It's me talking about certain words, how I view those words, how I apply those words to things that aren't words, like music or an illustration. I'm trying to give you words that make it easier to talk about things that aren't words using words. It's a tough thing to do. You'd be shocked. You'd be surprised because we tend to think in words. We tend to we think that words can just describe anything until we start trying to describe something with words, especially something abstract like artistic representation or the way something looks, the way something feels. I just watched this gigantic spider very quickly swoop up some prey. And the last thing we have is function. What is this thing doing? It's not even like what is it trying to do? What does it do? What is its function? I can't truly know the function of this video until it has already existed, and it can have different functions over time. It could be that this video has no function in the immediate future, that like literally it doesn't get released. It's possible I just like end this recording and then I shelve this and it just, never benefits me at all. Could be that somebody finds it later and releases it and then it serves a function. More likely I'm going to release it and it will serve the function for me of being, I have content coming out for the people who, support me, gives them a reason to support me, and also it might inform the way that people look at the world, shape the way that people talk about stuff, which is what I'm the most interested in because most of what I consume is this type of content. It's mostly people talking about stuff, people describing stuff. I always get dissatisfied with the way that people are talking about stuff, and so my content is about figuring out why am I dissatisfied, how do I change it, how do I make people describe things in a way that is more satisfying to me. And a big part of it right now is just getting people to decouple quality judgment from the way they talk about art, because it is so prolific. It's so deep in people's minds to like hear an album and then decide if it's a 7 or an 8 or a 9, and that's just the most pointless discussion you'll ever have. If you can tell me what is the rhythm of the art. When I saw the movie Birdman, my impression of that film was that it was percussive and absurdist. Those are the two words that kept running through my head the whole time I was watching the movie. And it's percussive because it's literally nonstop drums playing in the soundtrack, but like the reason that it is like that is that's the way the movie is. It feels like drums. It feels like this non-stop unending drum pattern that even though it's changing rhythm, it still at the same time is maintaining this feeling of this drumming won't stop. The drumming just keeps going through the whole goddamn thing, like me talking through this video. This is also a drumming type of content. It's just fingers on desk endlessly, so that's how I felt about that movie, is that it was just like drumming fingers on the desk and thinking about whether there could be a point to doing that and concluding that I don't know how I could possibly determine if there was a point to doing this. That's what absurdism is about. I also make very percussive absurdist content, as I guess why that's what came to mind as an example to bring up here. But in terms of like function, like what was that movie's function? Its function was for the creator, to make a statement that would win an Academy Award. I think that movie won like Best Picture or something that year. But also like it's to express an idea, to affect culture, affect the way people think, to make you reconsider the way that you look at certain archetypes of people, certain archetypes of scenarios, how film can be made and presented, and just like there's lots of functions that one piece of art can have. This video might change an enormous amount of things about the future, or it might barely change anything about the future. Again, it's really difficult for me to predict what the function will be because it's not what the intent is. The function is what does it do? The function of The Matrix was that it changed the zeitgeist completely. Like it reshaped the way that things were being talked about in its time. It's not that it did anything horribly original. It's that it took a bunch of stuff that was simmering, that was popular with people who were in the know, and it made people who weren't in the know. Will this video do that? I don't know. I have no way to predict that. That is how the zeitgeist works, though. So when you're describing something, let's say an album, describe to me the rhythm of the album. Is it high tempo, high energy? Is it low energy? Is it like something more nuanced, something harder to describe? Does it use odd rhythms? Does it put you in a weird sort of headspace with its timing? And then tell me about the form of it. What is it? Is it guitars? Is it paint? Is it a film? Is it shot on like a unique type of stock? Who's in it? What do they look like? What are they wearing in it? Where is it? Is it something I can go touch? Is it something that I should wear headphones to listen to and be in the world with it? Or can I play it out of a speaker? Is it going to fit in my house? Or is it something that I need to drive out to see? Like, where is it? What is it? And what is its rhythm? If it's just a big static object, its rhythm might just be, but like that can be mesmerizing, right? You go look at the Grand Canyon, it's not moving, at least not perceptibly, but it is like this epic, unyielding amount of ness. Like you look over it and you're like, there's just more to see here than I've ever seen. There's just so much going on, and your brain is always looking for information. It's always looking for uniqueness, distinctness. It wants to hear a new sound. It wants to see a new sight. It wants to collect that information, but it doesn't want to be overwhelmed. It doesn't want to be see it as incomprehensible. It wants it to be digestible, and that's why stories are so helpful, because stories are how we connect experiences we know people have to experiences we don't think they've had or haven't considered yet but might have later, or we convince them to go have an experience or have a thought through telling them a story that they can connect with. If I were to just pick a piece of art, let's say, and run it through this 5 things I've just said, let's talk about Pokemon Go. You've probably seen Pokemon Go, right? Like if you haven't played it, you at least you understand the concept. The rhythm of Pokemon Go is in part informed by the rhythm of how you live your life. If you're somebody who enjoys walking around, it's a game about going to a place where there's a lot of little points of interest in a row, maybe like a little statue here, a little statue 20 feet away, like a bench with a commemoration, some kind of place you can mill around and there's little sights to see. And the rhythm of the game is going between those and flicking these little Pokestops that give you your items and power-ups. And as you go in between them, a Pokemon will pop up and you throw a little ball at the ones you want and you try to catch them. And there's a rhythm to like the timing of how you have to throw it when they're not being aggressive towards you. Like there's a very specific rhythm to how that game is played and to how the animations move, how the music feels. Everything about it is extremely rhythmic. So if you know Pokemon Go, you definitely know the rhythm of Pokemon Go. The form of Pokemon Go, it's a phone game. So you see how I keep doing this motion, like this is my Pokemon Go motion, because this is literally the form of the game, is you holding your phone like this and moving your thumb like this. This is Pokemon Go in terms of what the literal form from your experience is. But what you're seeing in the game is all these three-dimensional forms that somebody crafted with a very specific unified aesthetic. And you have all these unique monsters. There's like 1,000 unique little cute monsters that all have their own individual form. So a lot of Pokemon is about the study of form. It's about the idea that there are these things that are like animals, but kind of fantastically different and extrapolated on into like, well, what if you took an animal and you imagined it had superpowers? It's like X-Men for animals, basically. Pokemon is X-Men for animals. Why am I the first person who's ever had this thought? That can't be, right? Yeah, it's basically if you want to fantasize about animals having cool superpowers and more intellect than regular animals, but not quite as much as humans, like just enough that they're even kind of cooler with humans than dogs are. And like all animals are that cool with humans as long as you can like tame them. That's the Pokemon fantasy. That's the form factor of Pokemon. That is what it is. So then you've got the place, right? Like Pokemon Go is a game that you are supposed to play outdoors. It's hard to play at home because there's usually not a Pokestop in your house. There's usually not really Pokemon appearing in your house. You have to go to a populated location. So it requires you to find somewhere that is effective to play Pokemon Go. Around here, there are specific places that because there's a high density of Pokestops, people will just sit there and play Pokemon Go all day. Like they'll just hit the same few stops. Like there's places you can stand where you can hit 3 Pokestops at a time and you can just wait a couple minutes for them to restart and it's faster than walking to another one. So at the height of Pokemon Go, there would be dozens, if not hundreds of people camped out around these spots. So that's the place where the game is being played. And there's also the place inside of the game. In Pokemon Go, that place is basically just a digital layer over top of reality. But there's also this fantastical understanding that Pokemon is set in its own world. Pokemon is set in these different regions. When you play the other games, you've got the Kanto region, the Johto region. And so even though it's implied that you're in your world, the Pokemon are from these other regions. I don't know how they got to where you are, but they're from other regions, and there's certain Pokemon you can only catch in certain parts of the world. So location plays obviously a massive role in Pokemon. Place, I should say, as I've categorized it. Now, as for palette, Pokemon has a very particular color palette. Everything is super saturated, super bright, very colorful. There's not really like off limits colors, but the overall feel of the game is this like high saturation, high lightness, high brightness, lots of sheen. It's a shiny game. It is definitely not dark or moody or in any way something horrific or evoking of trauma beyond the fact that the Pokemon are fighting and they're barely like the animations of the fights happening barely exist. So it feels comfortable and cozy and accessible and broad, and the palette is what I would describe as like, again, it's meant to appeal to like neurodivergent animal lovers who also like video games and fantasy. Like if you fantasize about your dog being able to like psychically communicate with you and breathe fire, then like Pokemon is your franchise. And then finally there's function, which Pokemon Go, for you as a player, the function is this is a fun thing to do. This is a distraction. It can be a way to hang out with your friends. It can be a way to get exercise. It can be a way, honestly, it's the fact that it has so many functions that made it so successful, right? Like you can play it antisocially, but it's more of a social game, and it really realized the full potential of Pokemon as a social activity, which it always had been, but it used to be like a very singular experience you could share with other people aspects of. Pokemon Go is like, if you're out in a place, there's people there. Like even if you don't talk to those people, there's people there. There's going to be some involvement. On the end of the people creating Pokemon Go, tremendous cash cow, unbelievable cash cow, and also like the ultimate data harvesting machine. Like Pokemon Go has done so much for globalism in general, just like for maps, for like the trade of information about what the world looks like, how it's shaped, like the data, how people move through the world, that especially the most important thing. Like the data from Pokemon Go has way farther reaching implications than just the player experience. So that's the function. So that was a way more interesting conversation than like, is Pokemon Go good? Or like, is Pokemon Go a 2 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10? Like, well, you could call it a 2 out of 10 video game if you're thinking of it like, how does it compare to the best video game ever? Or you could think of it as a 10 out of 10 cultural event moment. Or you could just talk about it the way I just did, which was full of nuance and intrigue and really gave you a full breadth of sense of what the game is, why it mattered, how people have used it, what it really is. So, when you talk about something, really anything, talk about it in terms of its rhythm, its form, its place, its palette, and its function, and you will definitely have an interesting conversation.
Normally, I make videos like this exclusively for the members of this channel whose names I'm about to read out momentarily. I thought this one was too important. I sincerely want the conversation about media to change in this specific way, so I'd like as many people to see this as possible. But my ability to make videos like this is only possible because of people like Tony Lex, Yodi Land Wizard, Electric Wings, Monomers, True Fox 1, Vuzi, Guilty Gonk, Heian Kyo, Mayday from Space, Ship, Brody, Ballast, Joshua Wiley AL, Anathemi Bedesu, Dr. Hades, Roger Ramos, Dragon Josh 151, Arthur Washington, Hewan, Elaine, Big Water Fan, Ranila, Luna Lulu, Zemq, Curbman, Crystalline Fos, Zydeas, Zinc, Radio Knights, Brianna W, Baba Gadusius, Pika Pika 2000, Sister of Scarlet, Kudere Kun, Spectral, The Mr. Grafixable, Oh My Guy, Commenter number 456, Spacey Filmer, Your Stuff is Cool, CC, Plague on Humanity, ASE Presents, Denacori, Z Cypher, Gary Always, Gigadonk, Ziracial, Zen Huxtable, Duncan 264, Gassy Hall, Taperclip, and Night Night. Shouts out to all of you. As always, thank you for holding it down. And I hope more people sign up for the memberships. There's lots more videos like this, lots of cultural philosophy, art philosophy, advice type stuff. Again, I normally make this stuff members only, so if you become a subscriber after this, you might not be able to see a lot of the content that comes out unless you actually become a member. All right, enough. Thank you.